This season of The Digital Fix is sponsored in part by Uconnect, providing true transparency for brands and agencies in the biddable media space. Visit them today at uconnect.com.
You're listening to The Digital Fix, digital marketing done right. This season is presented by Mio Marketplace. Mio, the marketer's matchmaker. If you're a brand marketer or an agency, media, or platform that works with them, Mio is a marketplace built just for you. Visit them at miomarketplace.com. And by Moy & Halter, a strategic consultancy. If you're struggling with getting your creative and content to efficiently work with your media strategy, we help solve for that. Reach out for a free consultation today at moyandhalter.com. And now, here's your hosts for The Digital Fix, Sean Halter and Stephen Moy.
You guys are listening to The Digital Fix, the podcast for all things digital marketing, presented by Mio Intelligence, a signal-driven growth platform for agencies, media teams, and marketers. We turn marketing insights and outreach into action. Visit them today at miointelligence.com. As a reminder, The Digital Fix is hosted by myself, the much more handsome, the much more stylish Stephen Moy, both of us with Moy & Halter, a consultancy looking to help bridge the gap between brands and agencies in the AI space. We're excited to have as our guest today, Wayne Simmons, author. He's going to talk a bit more about what he's up to. And Dan Slagen, CMO over at Zapier. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us on the podcast. Well, I want to start first things first. First of all, thank you, Dan, for helping me the other day with my Zapier question. It's always great when you can go straight to a source sometimes, and I certainly appreciate that. We're going to talk about things that we like to call digital done right. You're going to name another marketer or brand that you feel like is kind of getting digital right these days, and maybe why. Wayne, let's start with you. Who's getting digital right these days?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my favorite brand is always the Ritz-Carlton. And I see that because there's a reputation over many, many years of great experiences. And so I think they're doing the digital part right, but I'm also thinking about the in-person part, like the in-property, on-property part. So coordinate those two things, orchestrate those two elements. That's where the magic happens. So that's my favorite brand.
Listen, I mean, you start throwing names like Ritz-Carlton out there. We know that's right in your space. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Moy, before we get to Dan's pick for the week?
I mean, I work with Wayne a lot, right? You know, it's funny with the new paradigm shifted, like with the AI front, right? I think a lot of this, especially in travel hospitality, instead of like digital social first for the younger audience or cross-generational, my age still reading newspaper, watching TV, but like there's a new agent in town, right? A new audience. And, because especially the younger generation, how you discover like Ritz-Carlton versus Four Seasons, if you will, right? What's the differences, right? I think I would be interested to see this year how it sort out in terms of product and service discovery in the digital world we're living in, right? Just like anything else.
It's a good point, Stephen. Dan, next to you. Who are you going to pick this week and why?
I think this week, just given on those 2 points of how much work is going in on the AI front and discoverability and all that, I had one brand that I think did a really great job in the last couple months was Ramp. Ramp did just an awesome job leading into the Super Bowl, building up their brand. They had some celebrity talent come in. They did some pretty good marketing stunts, but one that really, I think, punched well above their weight, going with creative and going with brand.
I want to stay on that for just a second, then I'm going to let Stephen ask the next question. So talk about that selection for just a moment. Here we are so tied into everything that's digital. Here we are into measuring and weighting everything, certainly in your space as well, Dan. And yet the pick is a fair one. It's looking at, what is still left of only a handful of really big events where you can still really reach big people. And so is that takeaway in some ways from your perspective, Dan? Is it that we can get as granular as possible, but at the same time, sometimes you still need these big tentpole things to remind people who you are and why you're there?
Well, I think on one hand, yes, but I think on the other hand, there's now the opportunity to reach that many people every single day if the creative is able to take hold. So with Ramp, as an example, I'll go back to them and give them full credit. They had, one of the guys from the show The Office in an office in New York City on the street that people could walk by. And they did a whole stunt marketing thing about that. And that went viral on social and got them huge play. And that was also a build into their Super Bowl commercial. So they were able to take advantage of both the tentpole opportunities like the Super Bowl thing I talked about, but also be able to go into the everyday opportunity that now sits there with those that can be the most creative.
Crazy what gets buzzy, right? Especially around Super Bowl, there's so many messages around there. Stephen, next question is yours, my friend.
Well, since we talk about AI, I want to take an opportunity to ask Wayne and then Dan, right? Wayne, right? In the world of you are the expert. You're one of the better expert in CX that I ever met. I've been working for like 100 years, and
Wait, what
he's
words?
one of the
What words
best.
did you just use? He's one of the best
Yeah,
at what?
CX, customer experience.
Okay.
Customer experience. So in the world of AI, right? You heard some of the project I'm involved with, like, the prompt-based, answer engine-based. I mean, just like anything else, like social media, iPhone in the past, it would become table stake for every single brand. How CX play a role if you advise any company today, right? How you in that world, like how you help them?
Yeah, Stephen, I think it starts with like how we define brands, right? So I think, Dan was just talking about the brand promise, right? How you deliver a message, how the creative comes across to customers and prospects. So as a customer experience professional, I've infiltrated marketing to talk about the brand delivery, how brands are delivered. So how they show up in the real world across channels. So that means the digital channels and the in-person channels, as I implied before. So that to me is where AI is going to come in. How do we orchestrate that in-person, that digital experience where it comes across as one brand rather than separate channels, separate brand experiences? So that's how I see it playing out. AI is going to allow us to do what we've been trying to do for many years, which is to have that seamless experience across, regardless of what interaction or what type of interaction it is.
I would say I would agree with that. I think, when we talk about AI in marketing, the word that gets thrown around a lot is taste. Knowing sort of when is the right time for AI, when to pull back, when to push forward. And I think with customer experience, the word is something like balance, because, most people's experience with, I don't know, with calling customer service or general experience, sometimes it's not great anyway. And so there's times where people just want answers faster, or they want the thing they're looking for that's more relevant to them. And that's where AI is going to be great. There's other times where they are going to want to feel more of a human experience. And so sort of knowing what that balance is going to be different for every brand, depending on industry and your own brand. But that's, I think, where the magic starts to happen.
I think what's kind of interesting, especially with AI, is you do have this middle section of people. Maybe they're 26, 27, up to maybe 40, 45. They don't mind my perspective. Stephen, you're probably much smarter than me because I'm always 6 months behind where the reality of it is. They don't mind that experience to some extent if they can get there faster. Then you have people maybe who are in their 50s who are like, wait, what's this bot saying? Can I just get a human? It's what used to feel like my parents, but I'm getting closer to the age like, wait, what? Can I just talk to a human, please? But then you have this younger generation, there still feels like they're kind of a little anti-bot themselves. So you have this, I don't know, maybe Stephen, you've got a perspective. You have this middle part of the bell curve, a little maybe unusual, and then the older part that's like, I'm not touching this thing. And you got a younger end that's like, we're killing the environment and killing my job, so I don't want to touch it either. What's your perspective on that, Stephen? Close the loop.
Well, I'm gonna answer, and I want our guests talk about it. It's funny. It depends on different generation, right? And I think cross-generationally, the adoption, you never seen anything like that, right? Walmart.com, 20% of traffic come from ChatGPT or some sort of AI, right? Crazy, right? It would generate traffic for a brand. But if you talk to the younger generation, at least in New York, right? They were like using it like more like a personal companion, like therapist, boyfriend, girlfriend problem, job problem.
Wait, that's what I'm using it for.
And then also research. One thing I love about the different engine now, they developing different personality, right? ChatGPT lately become very, very empathetic. What do you think, Stephen? Like, why are you asking me? And then Claude just say, yeah, do this. So I want to get back to the our guest here. Like, what? It's very funny. Culturally, you see AI play a role, and then professionally for brand marketing or customer experience, right? What you see the next 6 months gonna be like, before end of the year, 2025? What you see any breakthrough in that sense? Let's start with Wayne.
Yeah, so I'm an AI pragmatist and optimist, and I see that because Sean, we are in fact our parents now. So it's just you reach the point, and we are our parents, and we've seen so many waves of tech flowing through over the years, from the dot-com boom, dot-com bust, to the emergence of internet as a real player in our society. So I look at it as, just another wave of technology. And I believe we're going to have, as from a pragmatist standpoint, it's going to help enable us and again, help us do things that we've been trying to do for many, many years. We live in a very fragmented B2B world. The world that I live in is very fragmented, very siloed. I think AI is going to help us to kind of smooth out and create those horizontal experiences on the business side. Like from a society standpoint, I think it's going to be really enabling to society, like help us be better. And I think that's how I'm using AI today. Like it's helping me as an assistant, to your point, Stephen. So I don't see AI being like this big onerous threat. I put it in the context of other waves of tech, and I think it's going to just smooth itself out over the next year or two and become part of the fabric of how we exist as humans. So it's my take on that. I don't look at the extremes a whole lot. I think about just how it's going to integrate into our lives.
Dan, anything you want to add to that?
I think it just depends on the industry. So again, I'm specializing in B2B tech. So of course, we're seeing a higher percentage of people use the LLMs to find a solution like mine. So we're investing probably more than most industries and more companies to make sure that we're showing up and we're in the conversations where the search is happening. Whereas that might not be the case as relevant right now within consumer. It's funny, Stephen, you mentioned like Walmart and ChatGPT. They also just canceled their agreement, if I saw the news right yesterday, because the conversion wasn't working right. We also just saw ChatGPT a couple days ago, or OpenAI a couple days ago, say they're only focusing on business applications and coding and maybe taking a step back from consumer. Like what does that mean? I think we can tell. So I think some of those things are starting to smooth out a little bit. The other thing is, I think on the consumer side, we're starting to see people go from just asking ChatGPT a fun question to actually using it as part of their daily lives in new ways. So it started with maybe getting a recipe, but then using it to create a shopping list. And then, I could also plan my kids' summer camp schedule and just, this could be a real tool for life. So that stuff's starting to happen a lot more in the background as well.
And yet Apple, $1 billion company, still can't get it right. That's what's crazy to me about that. I'm going to ask a next question. I needed to pontificate that because I'm so frustrated with them. I'm so frustrated, Siri. But let's leave the frustrations aside. We've been doing this podcast for 4 seasons now. AI has always played some part in it. I feel like each episode we try to make sure we're covering it, but not making this all about that. But it's getting harder and harder because that's where all of our lives are living to some extent, and certainly as we're sitting in the marketing space. So my question here is actually for all three of you, which is this. Wayne, you brought up something kind of interesting because you talked about AI for good and how can we utilize it for good and how can it be a partner of ours to help us out. I think many concerns obviously are that, we learned a bit from Facebook and Instagram, if we're not careful, that algorithm gets so tight and so smart that it starts swaying us before we realize quite how much we've been swayed. And with all of the news, whether it's Apple, who was just in the news with the current administration saying, hey, you're not using enough conservative voices in your news feed, or again, each of us individually go, no, I got this. We're now spending not just our time in social, which we all used to do, but then we could disconnect a little bit. We're now spending all of our time in all of it. And so is that algorithm going to continue to maybe manipulate us a little bit without us knowing? And one final part to that, we're talking so much about the tools we use, but yet often we look at this from an American lens. And global is doing this plus else. And so how does all of that kind of come into play? Does this bring us together? Does it bring us further apart? Stephen, you talk to us first. You're my prognosticator. You're my guy that tells me what I should be doing 6 months from now.
Well, I think it's interesting. If you watch our Western technology innovation, always get to the point. I always believe let the people design, right? Design what is good. I still remember one point. Will you give out your data to Facebook and Meta or whoever and then getting better convenient? I think for me, because I'm running around a lot, I don't mind it, right? As long as there's some rules and guidelines. And some people remember RFID when it came out in the early 2000 or even before that. People, I'm being tracked and traced. Now the younger generation, I'm here, they're sharing a location. I said, I never share my location. I don't understand that whole thing. So that's a cultural phenomenon shifting. And then the consumer, we're getting more and more. I think the younger generation become more and more used to it. A lot of people know I guess speaking at a lot of university, right? They have to stop the student using ChatGPT to answer all the term papers. So now, like Northeastern, I'm working with them. At the final and midterm, no ChatGPT, you have to do handwritten exam, which is like the old school. I love it actually, right? Of course, the handwritten gotta be good. But you see, I think eventually our society, if you watch after Second World War, Industry 3.0, 2.0, always a self-governance. I'm hoping, right? That's what, AI for good, right? With self-governance, I have not seen enough talk about is AI governance, like, ethical. Remember last year we had guests. I'm also internally, when I did at Barbarian CEO, right, we did an AI rendering and we try to mimic Spike Lee voice. And then the only talent we have is internal creative technologist. He happened to be white. He felt so uncomfortable when we do that. And I didn't realize until, things like that. I think I'm on half full kind of guy. I think eventually we self-governated. Just like, remember .com bubble when Bill Clinton was our president? Just let the world sort it out. Next thing you know, okay, yeah, you have to pay sales tax now when you order e-commerce, right? That's my hope. But again, I'm naive that way. Let's go to Dan.
Stephen, the question at Northeastern is: are the teachers grading those tests by hand, or are they just feeding them into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever? That's what I'd like to know.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, I think two ways to answer this. One, if I go back and think about social media and all the apps now, I mean, consumers of social media are at the mercy of what the algorithm wants to show you. And you can change it a little bit based on what your behavior is, but ultimately they're going to find what gets you addicted and they're going to keep you on that feed, and they're exceptional at that. With the LLMs, at least the promise is you can change the prompts. You can change the answer that you get based on what you want. So when I do specific searches on my LLMs, whether for personal or for business, it's trained on the type of answer I'm looking for and the type of information I'm looking to get. Now, I don't think that everyone will always do that to get the type of prompt they want, but the opportunity is there. And on the business side, when we're working on solutions with AI, we can train the types of answers that people are going to be receiving. It's trained off our business data, off our user data, off whatever it might be. So you're not just giving it some run-of-the-mill answer and you don't know what's going to get spit out, or it's not influencing people in one way or the other that you might want to. So at least at the moment, there's the promise of having the guardrails there to be able to influence the type of experience that you're having.
Wayne?
Yeah, Sean, I think your question really gets to something that I'm quite worried about. So maybe a little bit pessimistic about this. I think there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of noise out there. And I think social media is the canary in the coal mine about how algorithmic influence works, and in a negative way. So I'm on the positive side, I'm hopeful that the advance in tech, so with AI, as a consumer, as a citizen, I can somehow rationalize what's true for me and rationalize my news and try to get to the truth. I mean, I don't really have an answer, but it's an area that I think about a lot. How do we use technology to find truth? And there is one truth in many respects. So how do we get back to that? So I'm hopeful that maybe social media was the last generation of tech, and now there's a new generation of tech with AI in ways that we're not quite able to see quite yet. But it helps us to resolve some of those issues that social media has brought up. Misinformation being the number one thing.
It's a good point. Listen, the next question is about you guys. In 60 seconds or less, it's called Hey, That's Me. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and why you do it. Wayne, let's stay with you for a moment.
Yeah, so Wayne Simmons, I am a customer experience marketer. So that's how I frame myself. I've been working in customer experience for many years, and I do it in a commercial context. So I'm very, very interested in field force, Salesforce, field service, and marketing interactions with customers. So I'm in the pharma industry. I just left Pfizer about 2 weeks ago to start my own firm called Customer Excellence Agency, which is a riff off my book, and just really focused on helping pharma become more consumer grade in our interactions. That's my mission.
Can people grab the book on Amazon?
Absolutely.
Tell them the title.
It's the Customer Excellence Enterprise, a playbook for creating customers for life. It's published by Wiley. It's about 15 months old now. So yeah, you can find it on Amazon and anywhere books are sold.
Sounds great. Dan, how about you? Tell everybody who you are, what you do, why you do it.
Nice. Wade, congrats. It's no easy feat getting those things published. So congrats on that. I'm Dan Slagen. I lead the marketing team at Zapier. I'm a marketer at heart. I love the ability to be creative and drive huge impact to companies.
Interesting company, Zapier. I won't make us talk too much more about it, but it's one of those things, again, when you're not in the space every day, sometimes you're like, man, if somebody would just build this thing to help with this, and then whether it's the incredible job you guys are doing marketing yourselves or everybody else out there, and somebody's like, oh, you should try Zapier, and you're like, wait. It is one of those interesting things. Dan, spend just a minute on that, if you don't mind, which is so many names out there, so many different products, especially now they're doing so many different things that can kind of connect different things in different ways. How do you guys stand out from that pack? What you do is very unique and interesting, but how do you create that awareness in a space where, the names aren't, Royal Caribbean, the names aren't things that, immediately roll off the tongue?
Yeah, so we have millions of users. We have a bunch of the Fortune 500 companies as consumers here. Look, everyone's talking about implementing new AI systems and AI workflows, but when it's coming out in the reports, 95% of the solutions aren't working and they're showing absolutely no gain. And so the problem is people aren't doing it the right way. Zapier is a solution that helps you really run AI in the right way in an agentic world.
I would love to shift a little bit, right? Since AI really relying on data, right? I have not seen enough conversation. Remember big data, and then back then Teradata and the major platform, and it seems like every brand I talk to, they either have the wrong data, right? Like 10% useful, whatever, 30 million record or 300 million record. I mean, I was talking to Wayne last week, right? How do you make data more actionable with AI, like today, right? Can we really, at the end of the day, as a marketer, any CMO I talk to, CEO, how I want to launch a new product. Can I get more insight, right? Is it relevant? And the culture moving so fast. Can I, it used to be focus group news and, give you a toaster, come to my focus group 18 months later, right? After launch, right? You can really do real time. I want to talk about what are the opportunities with AI, data, so many data right now. Let's start with Wayne. What are the real opportunity there?
Yeah, Steve. So first, I would say that when you think about data, right, we're great at generating data. Like the companies that I work with in pharma, massive data, generators around patients and professional health professionals. So very, very data-driven business. And I think this idea of like mechanically fixing your data and then AI will work better is a sort of outdated idea. I think AI in and of itself has to be able to help us to fix that data problem, because we have a huge data debt. I mean, no one has great data. It's everywhere. It's now in huge data lakes. And I think this idea of like fixing the data first and then getting to more impactful AI is just not the way it's going to work out. We have to use AI itself has to solve that problem for us. If it doesn't do that, then I think it's going to be, a miss. So, I think I'm getting to your question, but it's really about how the AI itself fixing the legacy data problem that we all have is a massive benefit, massive leap for everyone.
Yeah. Dan, any perspective you want to add to that?
Yeah. So I'll speak on Zapier's half. Again, we're sort of helping businesses implement AI workflows and agentic. And if you think about that, we have so much data that we can be serving up to our prospects and our customers. And we're using AI to really make sure that we can nail the relevance. So if you're starting to build with AI or you're, taking the next level, like finding out where that point of diminishing return for you is what's really great. I can show you, hey, based on who you are a manager level, a VP level, a C level, you work in this industry, you work in this department, here's what your peers are building today, and here's what you're probably interested in. So now I know, great, you're a manager on the marketing team at an insurance company, or I know you're a director at another department in another insurance. Like I can now get that exact data in front of you, and you can start to personalize what we show you and what we help you build based on exactly who you are and what you need. That type of stuff would just be something where in the past we'd probably default to showing more broad use cases that we would hope would be, applicable to as many people as possible, but not really, really personalized.
It will be interesting to continue to watch. Steven's in this space a lot. What is happening with all of this that we've just talked about in the last half hour, how they all interweave and how they all interconnect, how we're utilizing our own experiences, and these LLMs are then taking that information, they're customizing that outreach back to us. They're trying to be actual agents, and how much of that really is now a agent in between those 2 points, because I'm going to ask my agent, this is the problem I have, what's the solution? And you need it, Dan, to say Zapier, right? Rather than those other things. And that's To me, maybe at least it still feels very, very, very new. For Steven, that's probably old hat because, again, he's always 6 or 7 months ahead. Steven, you get to ask the last question.
Well, I think with favorite last question, right? If you're going to a keynote speaking, right? Who you gonna bring, dead or alive, like for events like Possible? It's coming up, right? This week South by Southwest, and coming up is Possible. The big event in May. Like, who would you bring? Like, if you're speaking on a keynote, let's start with Wayne.
You get to pick a keynote. Who would you pick? Dead or alive, Wayne?
Stephen, I would pick you. I think you bring a new perspective, and I love your global view. And I think you always remind me when we talk that the world's a big place, and we can't forget about the rest of the world. Asia, in particular. So I always appreciate that. So I'd bring you for that global view.
Damn it, Wayne!
Nobody's
ever picked me, and now Steven's finally going to be able to brag, like, "Oh, I got picked." Wayne didn't. I didn't even know he was going to pick me.
Backup. You're Plan B, Sean. You're Plan B.
Plan B. Dad, who would you pick and why?
You know what? I'm just going to tell you the name that popped in my head when you answered that question, and I've been thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I actually kind of like this. My brain said I would bring Jimi Hendrix. And it makes sense. We are now in a world where AI is unlocking such potential in people and being able to really help them 10x what they've been able to do in the past. And we need people that are insanely talented, insanely creative, can do things that maybe others don't understand yet or can see what's coming around the corner. And it'd be super fun.
Somebody picked David Bowie a couple weeks ago. It made me think almost kind of somewhat similar to what you said. Again, maybe we're in this world where we're spending so much time in agents where, I have to stop myself some days and set alarms just to get up and get outside to see actual humans, that It will be interesting when the artists really embrace some of this. And what do we get out of that? How do they take these interesting elements of technology and embrace what actually tends to unite all of us, male, female, black, white, US, anywhere? It's music and art. That's the stuff we all love. Steven, you get the last word. As always, tell us, what do we need to know heading into next week to fix our digital mess?
Well, I love what Wayne and Dan, you talk about AI for good. I mean, we are very focusing on, I think, if truly technology innovation can, create more diverse, equal, right, and inclusive environment. I think AI, like for example, eventually AI gonna be the companion, versus tutoring. I have so many friends with private school tutoring, spending a lot of money. With AI, all of a sudden everybody's equal. You have same access to knowledge that you need, and hopefully our next generation become, better person than myself and become better leaders in the world. So AI for good.
It's a good point. Listen, on behalf of myself, Stephen Moy, we want to thank you, Wayne and Dan, for joining us on this episode of The Digital Fix. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Digital Fix, digital marketing done right. This season is presented by Mio Marketplace. Mio, the marketer's matchmaker. If you're a brand marketer or an agency, media, or platform that works with them, Mio is a marketplace built just for you. Visit them at miomarketplace.com. And by Moy & Halter, a strategic consultancy. If you're struggling with getting your creative and content to efficiently work with your media strategy, we help solve for that, typically in 30 days or less. Reach out for a free consultation today at moyandhalter.com.